Hello, in this video I'd like to show you some work I've been doing on parameters. Before we could only subscribe to parameters with the subscribe parameter component, and you could only create parameters within the RADii viewers that could then be transmitted back to the subscribe parameter component. Also, the parameters created here would not be available to other viewers. They would sort of be this local parameter in here. But now I've made a publish parameter component. This allows you to create parameters within Grasshopper that will appear in the viewers, and it allows you to transmit between Grasshopper instance to Grasshopper instance, but also from Grasshopper to viewer and from the viewer back. So this ties it all to all the parameters together. And when you plug it in, it doesn't have anything, but if you zoom a little bit closer, you have the ability to add a parameter. And then you give it a unique name. Let's call it a float, because that's what we're going to add. And let's create a slider with a float value. And then the minute I add it up here, it appears up here as the name that I had given it here. And let's add it here. And you can see me change it. It will update its values. And these are being transmitted across. And anybody listening will receive the same content. So let's also add an integer. This is a new parameter that I added because you might want to be interested in using integers from the viewers to trigger something from RADii in Grasshopper, because they are often triggered by index, like a animation, a scenario, or a view. But you can also use the index to get through a list coming from Grasshopper to maybe look through different revisions that are ordered in a list. So let's make an integer, pass an integer in here. It's important that they pass through an integer filter or integer component, because even though it looks like an integer, it's really a double, but it just has low precision. So let's pass it in here, and it will appear up here. And let's add it in here, and then you can see change as I change it here. So let's add the last one, which is the boolean, like that. And let's add a toggle for that. And as I add it up here, it appears up here. So now I can toggle it up here, and it appears immediately. These are syncable. That means when I start the view up here, I can sync all these values and I will receive them over here. They are also savable, so you can save them with a scenario, or you can save it in a save component, and the minute that these are triggered, those parameters will appear in the viewers. So they could be something that are predefined parameters that you wish for users to have in the viewers, ready for them to use. But let's try that and just connect here, and then sync over here, and then go back, and then you can see them already here. They already have the right value, so if I change it over here, you can see it change in the parameters over here. And also the integer and the toggle, of course. And if I change them here, you can see that the slider change in the view as well, and also over here. And the value that is being transmitted is by the one that's been touched last. So this one will make it jump to what this is, and if you change this one, it will be this one that is the, sort of the last thing that has been moved over here. If I were to change this one into an integer, for example, let's do that just for testing here, pass it into an integer, you will see this one change into an integer over here. And then it's an integer, and then you can use it to change integers over here. And if you pass it back in as a float, it becomes a float over here that I can manipulate. So then you can change the type. It's very important that it passes through so it knows it's an integer, otherwise it will just think it's still a float. So this one is important because it changes the type. So let's add another one over here called float2. And let's add another slider for that over here and pass it in, and you can see it appear down here. Then you have float2 both here, and you can add it in here. And they will simply just appear as I change them. You can also create them over here. Let's call it float3 over here. This is the boolean, this is the float, this is the integer. Let's create a float called float3. This will then be float3, and so on and so on. And you can add them simply here and change them. Those are, I think, the basics of how it works. This will be in the new beta for you to work with. There are probably some bugs that I'll fix along the way, but the implementation is quite close to what I want. But you can give it a try. That's it for now.